The Toronto Raptors seem intent on keeping Darko Rajakovic as their head coach for the foreseeable future, but does that change with good coaches like Taylor Jenkins and Michael Malone becoming available for hire? Let's get into it. This is Amateur Sports, a YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content. So drop a like if you enjoy along the way. Subscribe for more content just like it into the offseason, which has tons of great stuff coming your way as well. Also, shop the merch to give that extra support to the channel. But yes, Darko Rajakovic. We've talked about him in a video recently on the channel when we finally had revealed information about the duration of his contract with the Raptors when he initially was hired to be the Raptors head coach at the start of last season, so the start of the 2023-2024 season. He was given a 3-year contract, but at the end of that first season, he was extended for 1 year with the team option. The Raptors had a team option for the 4th year, which they gave to him and extended to him at the end of his first year. So Darko Rajakovic under contract with the Raptors for 2 more years after this season. So to the end of the 2026-2027 season. So based on the way things have gone this year for the Raptors, look, it hasn't been great with the record and everything, but there seems to be progression with development, and there seems to be a really good attitude amongst the players between themselves and for their coach, Darko. So it seems like Darko Rajakovic is going to be here to stay, but when some really good options come up, is there a chance the Raptors could decide to go in a different direction? I mean, DeMar DeRozan, the Raptors were definitely keen on keeping DeRozan with the team beyond the 2017-2018 season, but then when a player like Kawhi Leonard becomes available, I'm not saying any of the coaches out here are Kawhi Leonard, but you know, sometimes you make the decision that is best for your organization. So we're going to investigate the coaches that are available and if it is worth replacing Darko Rajakovic with one of them. Earlier on in the season, kind of a strange firing was the Sacramento Kings dismissing Mike Brown. It was a weird one because we kind of looked at Sacramento's team and decided, like, Mike Brown's a great coach who has led this team to be the 3 seed. And no, they're not doing that this year, but would any coach be getting more out of this Sacramento team? And since then, they've kind of taken, well, I don't know if we'll call it a step back, but, you know, making your team around Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan in 2025 certainly was an interesting decision by the organization. But, you know, if that wasn't strange enough, a few weeks ago, the Memphis Grizzlies, with like 10 games left in the season, fired Taylor Jenkins after lengthy success in the regular season. And no, that hadn't extended into the playoffs, but Taylor Jenkins had done so much with the Memphis Grizzlies over the years, despite having players missing through injury. Like, the Memphis Grizzlies have been ravaged by injuries over the last 5 years or so. They've had issues with players getting suspended, like Ja Morant, for, you know, various reasons here or there. It just seems that the Memphis Grizzlies never had a healthy and intact team for an extended period of time, yet still Taylor Jenkins always put this team in large positions to succeed, oftentimes giving them a home playoff seed for the first round, and was kind of on track to getting to the playoffs again this season. But, I mean, if that wasn't strange enough, oh my goodness, 3 games left in the season, and Michael Malone gets fired by the Denver Nuggets. That one came absolutely out of nowhere. And it's a really interesting one for Jenkins and Michael Malone. Like, how could they possibly fire these guys? Like, Michael Malone was an NBA champion with the Denver Nuggets in 2023. They were on track to being, you know, a top 3 seed potentially in the Western Conference this season. And yes, was 3 games left in the year, a lot can change. Like, Denver could slip all the way to the 8 seed at this point and maybe even miss out on the playoffs altogether. But, you know, Mike Malone had done so much for his organization. Why make such a rash decision with 3 games left? You know, like, if you want to move on in the offseason, that's one thing, but to completely reshape things and go for Adelman, one of your assistants, as head coach right at the end of the season, like, that is a very rash decision, in my opinion. But it's very clear that Michael Malone is a good coach. With Taylor Jenkins, maybe ownership and maybe management felt like a lot of the bulk of the work that was being done for the team was being done by the assistants. They wouldn't really miss Jenkins, and it would have been a jolt the team needed. You know, for Mike Malone, had he lost the locker room, reports are coming out that players weren't respecting him. Even Mike Malone himself in a press conference talked about he had to, like, force players to watch film, force players to watch those minutes. Now even more reports are coming out that he was giving Russell Westbrook, like, special treatment, and that rubbed players the wrong way. There was a lot going on here, but let's focus back in on the Raptors, specifically with guys like Taylor Jenkins and with Michael Malone, who have had recent success, specifically Michael Malone, who has recent success going as far as an NBA championship just even less than 2 years ago. Are these coaches the types of people the Raptors should be bringing in? So for starters, I really like what Mike Brown did with the Sacramento Kings. I'd be interested. I'm a really big fan of Taylor Jenkins as a head coach. I would love Taylor Jenkins as a Raptors head coach. And I am a fan of Malone as a head coach. And Mike Malone also has some ties with the Toronto Raptors. His late father was actually the first head coach in Raptors history, which have given some Raptors fans the seed to link Malone to coming to the Raptors. I'm a fan of these coaches. Not as much Malone compared to Jenkins. I think Malone is a good coach. I don't think he's a fantastic coach, but I think he's a good coach who could do a good job with the Raptors. I really am a big fan of Taylor Jenkins as a head coach, continuing to say that he has done a lot with that Memphis team, even tasked with some difficult situations. Darko Rajakovic actually kind of comes from the Taylor Jenkins coaching tree. He was an assistant with Jenkins for a while, so there's a little bit of a link there. Obviously, if a guy like Jenkins were to come into the Raptors and be the head coach, look, people can say, bring in a better head coach and move Darko into a different role. That's not going to happen. Imagine you at your job, they come up to you and say, well, actually, we're replacing you and we're going to demote you. You're going to work under the guy that's going to take your role. That's not going to happen. They're not going to go up to Darko and say, listen, you're still working for us, but you're not the head coach anymore. If you're going to replace him as head coach, you're firing Darko Rajakovic. That's the way it's going to be. And though I believe Taylor Jenkins would be, look, it's well documented. I'm not a big fan of Darko Rajakovic. He's showing promise this season, and I understand that, and I respect what's going on this season. I like Taylor Jenkins. I think he's a better coach and would probably prefer him as head coach over Darko Rajakovic. I'll say it bluntly. However, given the situation of the Raptors, you still see the togetherness of this group. You still see the improvements from defense this season, and you still see the overall development of players throughout the season. And for what's gone on this season, as bad as it's been for like a 30-win team, essentially, there's been progress. And Darko Rajakovic has done enough, absolutely, at this point, to earn himself another season. He has earned the right to showcase whether or not he can be a winning coach with the team next season, because that's what we've been kind of building for the last 2 years. We kind of morphed into a rebuild in Darko's first season as head coach, but the fact that they hired Darko makes me think that was the direction that the team was going to take the entire time. This season was absolutely, positively the first year of the rebuild. Darko Rajakovic made that clear at the start of the season. Masai Ujiri made that clear at the start of the season, but it seems like an only 1 year rebuild. They've invested resources, and honestly, not that much, but they invested stuff in getting Brandon Ingram, and it definitely looks like there was a desire next season to get back into the playoff picture and start actually winning games seriously again. Darko Rajakovic, for the work he's done over the last 2 years, has done enough to have that opportunity. Now, it's kind of a shame that these good coaches available that, maybe had they been available when the Raptors were in their head coaching search after Nick Nurse, they could have been given one of these positions here. But the situation as it stands, Darko Rajakovic has absolutely done enough to warrant going further in this job and showcasing that he can win. But as I said in a previous video, we're beyond the losing. We're beyond the excuses here. Darko has done good stuff in improving the defense, building up this great morale and great culture. Like you saw, even like in the recent game we saw against the Hornets, Jonathan Mobile getting a triple-double in a meaningless game. But the teammates so hyped up for him. That was great to see the togetherness of the group, and we've seen the development of players. Like Jacoby Walter's gotten better as the year's gone on. Grady Dick has gotten better as a Raptor, though he's been injured at the end of the season. Jamal Shea has improved so much over the course of this season that now we're really confident with him as the backup point guard for next season. Darko's done a lot of good for the Raptors, but it's now time to get serious and prove that he can be a winning coach. No more excuses. This has got to be a playoff team for next season. I agree with some of the comments that have been saying, like, it'll be a failure if we miss the playoffs. Yeah, I'm in agreement. This team has got to be a playoff team next season. Darko Rajakovic has got to prove that he can be a head coach that wins games with his team as well. But he absolutely, even with the coaches available, kind of, sad to see them, other teams being able to hire these other good coaches. But Darko Rajakovic has 100% earned the right to prove whether or not he can be a winning coach. But again, it's up to him to showcase that he can win those games next season. As much as I love Jenkins and Malone and maybe the thought of them coaching the Raptors, it's still Darko's job to lose in Toronto.